Welcome, guys, to another video. I wanted to give my my predictions, I should say. It's just predictions. It doesn't mean that I'm gonna be 100% accurate about it. So I'm making the predictions now. If it ages well, then I get all the credit in the world. If it does not age well, then I'm sure I'm gonna have some of you guys making comments on here, making fun of the predictions that I'm making about the NBA Finals. Okay, so we have Dallas Mavericks playing in the finals against Boston Celtics. Okay. Now, conventional wisdom. All right, conventional wisdom would say just look at their records and who had the better season. And even Vegas, for people who love to bet, if you love to look at Vegas's numbers and see what they're saying, if you want to base your standard off of their metrics, then you're going to see that Boston is the favorite in the finals to win the finals. But there's something that Vegas and those AI computers don't account for, okay? You have to account for momentum. And there's no rubric or metric used to gauge or see the accuracy of the impact of what momentum can provide you, or provide a basketball team or any sports team rather. When I look at Dallas Mavericks, they have the momentum. Number one, they played in a harder division, the Western Conference. They played in the hardest conference. They went through the gauntlet. They went through Clippers. They went through OKC. They went through Minnesota. Minnesota being a team that dethroned the ex-champions. So to me, Dallas is more battle-tested. The reason why I'm using this, and I'm using these truths as a way to influence my prediction, is because those are things that people don't take account for. Many times in the NFL, and I'm going to segue to the NFL just a bit, just to make a comparison. A lot of times, a team that gets into the wild card is a team that goes far into the playoffs. You say, why? Is it because they're better? No, it's something called momentum. How are you playing going into the playoffs, and how are you playing going into the finals? When I look at both Boston and Dallas, I think that Dallas, in a way, overachieved this season. I don't think people thought they would be here. And Boston just did what they were supposed to do. The pressure is on Boston. And these are the things that, these are the intangible factors, all right, that are wrapped up, encapsulated in the realm of emotions that play a part in the physical when you're actually playing on the basketball court. The more of the pressure is on Boston, that's not always a good thing. People say, well, pressure is good, it pushes you. It's not always a good thing. Not when you're playing in a high pressure game. Too much pressure is not good. There's enough pressure in the NBA to go around for everybody. Everyone's trying to excel at their role. Everyone's trying to compete and be the best that they can. There's a normal gradient of pressure that's feasible and that's normal to the human existence, that allows us to evolve and do what we need to do. A husband, a wife, there's a certain amount of pressure for you to do the right things, that you don't get in trouble so you can feed your family. You don't want to go to work doing stupid things and get fired. There's a certain amount of pressure when you're behind the wheel and you're driving your car. The pressure is to make sure that you're cognizant of your surroundings, that you're circumspect about certain things that can happen, and you have a defensive mindset, a defensive driver's mindset as you drive. You have to drive for other people. So there's a healthy degree of pressure that's inserted into all stratas of life. When it comes to sports, also, there's pressure. You don't need extra pressure on yourself. Boston, because of their past success, because of them going to the finals and getting pushed out by Golden State in 6 games, now they're going back. The pressure's on them. There's no way that you guys are going to explain to me or tell me that that's a good thing. Now, you can look at it and take an alternative approach and look at it through a different lens. And you can say, okay, you know what? But they've been there. This is their second time going. They get a chance to redeem themselves. They're getting a second chance. Yes, they're getting a second chance against a different team. They're not getting a second chance against the same Golden State Warriors team. Okay, they're not getting a second chance against them. They're getting a second chance against a monster. And that monster resides in Dallas. His name is Luka Doncic. What I saw him do in Minnesota, I've never seen anything like that before. And this is not recency biased at all. I've watched a lot of sports. He single-handedly willed that team to win. He single-handedly took the hearts out of everybody in that arena. And talked trash while doing it. And taking high-degree difficulty shots. It's not like he's a center that's like 7'5", 300 pounds, and he can just bully his way to the rim and dunk on everybody. He wasn't doing this with physicality, folks. This was all skill. The degree of difficulty on those three-pointers, look. And then when you think you have him contained, you have another guy named Kyrie. He's a human AI. He's a human artificial intelligence wrapped up in a capsule of a human body. He's not human. People say, you notice, a lot of people always say, watch film on this person. Watch their tendencies. Kyrie has no tendencies. You say, what do you mean? He has none. The more pressure you put on him, he mixes you. He puts you in a tumbler. He puts you in a washer. You can't, there's no, oh, he has a tendency to do this. No. He moves as you move. And that's hard to gauge a guy like that because you can watch tape all day. Trying to understand the patterns of Kyrie Irving is trying your best to understand a new language, a difficult language, an ancient language that's no longer used. It's sort of like a person trying to learn cuneiform transcripts, those ancient old transcripts that were written on Sumerian tablets in the ancient days, a language that's not even used at all, and you're trying to decipher it. That's Kyrie. You can't contain Kyrie, nor can you contain Luka. Now, the argument to that is like, well, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are good. Well, Jason Tatum is very inefficient. He has spots where he sometimes fades. And I would argue that Jaylen Brown is the more efficient out the two. I would argue that Jaylen Brown should be their go-to. I just think that Jason Tatum is the face of the team, but I would argue that he's not even their best player in terms of efficiency. He gets more attempts. He gets more chances. They don't have a killer on Boston. The only thing Boston has collectively that you can call quote-unquote killer is probably their defense. But let me remind you guys that Dallas also has a great defense as well. During that trade deadline, the moves that they made during that trade deadline was very, very instrumental in their success this year. Lively, the guy that they got from Washington, I forgot his name, that other center. Great additions to the team. They lock people down. They made Anthony Edwards look pedestrian at best. He worked hard for every shot he took. Look at what they did to OKC. They were the young upcoming team. They were supposed to be the next in line. Dallas just came through and eviscerated that team. Minnesota was supposed to be their biggest challenge because they play big and they're a great defensive team. They annihilated Minnesota, offensively and defensively. So they're peaking at the right time. So number one, Dallas has momentum. Number two, Boston has pressure. Number three, Dallas has nothing to lose because they weren't even supposed to be here anyway. Remember, they got Kyrie for the cheap. Kyrie was supposed to be the troublemaker. How is this dynamic between two ball-heavy guys? How is that going to work? How is the amalgamation with both Kyrie and Luka going to work? Both guys are ball dominant, but they made it work. They're here. And everybody plays their role well. See, I believe that Dallas has the making of a championship team. Okay? And Boston has the makers of a championship team, but without the killer. Usually every championship team has that one guy that he's a wild card. Like there's nothing you can do to stop that one guy. And that's the Luka. There's nobody like that for Boston. Now you may get guys that may go on a hot streak, but most of those guys, you can contain them. You know, Luka, he controls the game, he controls tempo. He controls everything. The ball is always in his hands. The assists, the rebound, the points. You name it, he's got it. There's no player like that on Boston. And then Boston is too reliant on the three-point shot. Now, we know that the current NBA, most teams are relying on it, but Boston is overly reliant on the three-point shot. And if you live by the three, you die by the three. See, the thing is, when those years that Golden State were winning and people had the misnomer or the idea that, hey, maybe these guys shoot a lot of threes. No, they shot threes well, but they shot a lot of twos as well. And they were very good defensively. Boston is good defensively, but they shoot way too much threes. They shoot more threes than the Golden State teams of the old shot threes. They shoot threes a lot. But the thing is, Dallas is a good defensive team. And Dallas can shoot the three well as well. Now, they don't shoot it in terms of volume. They don't shoot as much threes as Boston, but their defense can make up for that. And then what happens when your go-to offensive arsenal is mitigated in terms of, let's say you start shooting threes and you're not making them, then what? Boston doesn't have a second gear. I've watched them all season. They just shoot the crap out of threes. And maybe White gets hot. Maybe Horford can get hot. Maybe Jaylen Brown gets hot. Porzingis. But it's too many ifs. With Dallas, it's just a definite. You know, even if Luka has a bad shooting night, there are other ways he can impact the game. And just when you think you got him bottled up, you have another guy who can get his own shot at any time, at will. The only person that can stop a player like Kyrie is Kyrie. You just have to pray and hope he misses the shot. It has nothing to do with your defense. It has everything to do with his shot release. You can't stop that guy. Same thing with Luka. Same thing with Luka. So I'm picking Dallas to win the series. I don't know how many games it's gonna go. I could see Dallas winning in 5. I can't see them sweeping them because the games are going to be close. And when the games are close, I'm going to side with the team that's more battle-tested. Now, I understand Boston was battle-tested with Indiana. That game 1 with Indiana, they should have lost. You know, Jaylen Brown hits that corner, the left corner 3 to set it into overtime. And then, of course, Boston ends up winning that game. And Boston had their walk to the finals was very, very easy. But it doesn't mean that they're a bad team. They're still a good team. They beat the teams that were in front of them. Okay? So that's all you can ask a team to do. But looking at it, I just think the momentum and the wave and the adrenaline rush is on the side of Dallas. And Luka is not like how LeBron was or is. He's not mentally fragile. As great as LeBron is, I feel and I felt like there were times when if the pressure was too much, he would still play great, but he wouldn't take over games. I'm not saying that he's never taken over games. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that it seems like Luka has more of that killer instinct in him because he can shoot the ball every time if he wanted to. He doesn't want to. He likes to humiliate teams. Throwing the lob, laughing while he's going down the court, laughing in your face, and there's nothing you can do about it. And I think that if Dirk wants to come to Boston, there's nobody on Boston that can guard him. Who do you want to put on? You want Jaylen Brown to check him? Jaylen Brown's too small. Tatum, he's too big for Tatum. Even though Tatum is longer and tall, but he can still body Taylor. When I say bigger, I mean in terms of his width, his mass. He's bigger. He's skilled. You're not gonna speed up Luka. He dictates what he does. You're not gonna dictate what he does. He can draw fouls, and don't let him catch fire from 3. It's over. It's over. So I'm picking Dallas to win the series. Boston's 2 relying on the 3. I'm still skeptical about Porzingis' health, even though he's coming back. But I mean, is he really 100%? I'm sure no one's 100% at this time of the year, but still. Lively is good. Lively can play perimeter defense. He can move his feet. He's been a great surprise for me watching him ascend into his role, being a master of his role, rim running, catching lobs. I like what he brings. I like Jones. I like the team dynamic for Dallas. It seems like everybody plays their role well. Whereas with Boston, anyone on a given night can be the main guy. And I think that's a problem when you don't have a system and particularly a go-to person. Because in clutch time, I mean, who would you say is the go-to person for Boston? Is it Jaylen Brown or is it Jason Tatum? Now, conventional wisdom would say, oh, it's Tatum because he's the face of the team, but there's some times where Jaylen Brown's playing better. And I would argue that they're here in the finals because of Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown hit a lot of key shots in series that led up to the finals. So you have to consider that. So when it's clutch time, who does Boston go to? Do they just go to the hot hand? Or do you go to your go-to player? I know who Dallas is going to go to. I don't care if Luka Doncic is 3 for 20 that night. I know who they're going to go to. They're going to put the ball in Luka's hands. You live by Luka, you die by Luka. Whereas with Boston, they live and die by the three as a collective, which is not a good thing because when moments get tight in games, because everything, see, one thing with the basketball season is more like diluted and spread apart. All right? It's more like a macro view of everything. But when it gets down to the playoffs, especially when it gets down to the finals, it starts to get more narrowed down. Everything becomes more microscopic. Teams know what you're going to run. At this point of the year, there's no surprises. Now, coaches are going to make their adjustments, play chess, and the coaching plays a big role into it as well. And with Mazzulla, I think that's the coach of Boston, his name. And looking at Kidd, I don't know who to give the coaching edge to. Maybe I'll give it to Kidd because I'll say he has more experience because he played. And I would give the coaching edge to Dallas just by a small margin, not a huge margin. And though this is his first time in the finals as a coach, but he's been there as a player and his experience as well. This is Mazzulla's second year going to the finals. So I'll give the slight edge to Jason Kidd. In terms of the team dynamic, I love the team dynamic of Boston, but I don't think that it's conducive to winning the title against a team like Dallas because Dallas knows what they are. We are, believe it or not, they're really a defensive-minded team. Everything functions off of their defense. And Luka just controls the offense. And just when you think you have Luka bought up, there's another guy over there that's just as clutch as any player in the NBA, and his name is Kyrie Irving. They're going to give Boston problems. And these little smiles that Kyrie gives during interviews, he's a silent killer as well. He remembers what happened at Boston, and he's coming to avenge the narrative about how he wasn't a good teammate in Boston and how he didn't gel well with the young guys. And remember, Kyrie was going through a lot of personal things then. You know, I think the passing away of his grandfather impacted him and affected him. So we'll see how everything turns out when they do play. But I'm picking Dallas to win the finals. I don't see what I've seen Dirk do. I keep saying Dirk. What I've seen Luka do during these playoffs is a guy who went through the West, the much harder conference, the much more difficult conference. And I saw a guy that single-handedly willed his team to win. Even with games when Kyrie wasn't playing well, he would just will him to win. All right. That's my take. All right. See you guys later. Peace.